Hi, and welcome to the SoCal Yearbook Gal Education Series designed to inspire, encourage, support, and make your life easier. Since JEA was canceled this year, I am going to offer you the presentation via a very sanitary video. So this one is it's called Strangers to Family to Leaders, and it's on how to build a really strong yearbook classroom. The cool thing about yearbook is that, and those of you who have been doing this for a while, you know that kids come in a certain way, and sometimes they're shy, sometimes they're uncomfortable around other people, and then they end up leaving stronger and more outgoing and more like a leader. And it's such a cool thing to watch. And so this presentation today is just on how to build that strong group of students who come in as strangers, and then you build up this family, and then ultimately they turn into leaders before they leave your classroom. And it's a beautiful thing to watch happen. And I'm so grateful to those of you who are yearbook advisors who are able to do that for your kids. It's just so cool. So Strangers to Family to Leaders. The first slide is just an introductory slide. It talks a little bit about myself. There's my family right there, my husband Travis. My oldest daughter Sienna is the one in the middle bottom, and then Zoe is up at the top, and they're 12 and 13. And then the schools where I taught, I taught for a really long time, and I was also a coach. I taught English and math, and I ended with PE, which was fun. And then I was a coach also. I was an activities director and an athletic director, and I coached everything from lacrosse to rock climbing and cross country, everything in between. So, and I think probably one of the coolest things I did was being a yearbook advisor. That it's my passion. It's so much fun. And so the top right-hand corner, that is a picture of me. I was rock climbing, and it's not nearly as scary as it looks in the picture. I was very close to the ground, but that was also a passion of mine to just to be able to get out there, be outside, and that's like the definition of social distancing, I guess. It's like being out there by yourself on a rock. So and down at the bottom, I love yearbook. I truly do. It really is my passion. It's so fun. So how do you build a successful yearbook program that's filled with trust, respect, and a sense of community? It says it just may take an umbrella, an onion, and a roll of string. So obviously that's kind of vague. I'm going to walk you through that. The first part is just respect, trying to build this respect in a yearbook classroom. I really feel like it's the foundation for your classroom, and it's how I started every single year. I used it for all of my classes, not just yearbook, but rather than telling your kids what not to do, I would tell them what to do. And I was able to narrow it down so that they didn't have to remember a lot, like, oh, I need to do this, or I need to do that, or I need to not do this or not do that. I just put it as one point, which is just respect. And the interesting part about respect is that it's all encompassing. So I have it here as an umbrella because respect is the main idea, but you start at the core. And so the first part is to respect yourself. So you're going to start right at the very center. It's most important for the students to respect themselves. I would treat them putting themselves down the same way that I would treat them putting other people down. So students weren't allowed to say, oh, I'm so dumb, or oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's really just being kind and loving to yourself. And I think that's where everything starts. And then you go just a little bit bigger, and you respect your classmates. So you respect yourself, and then you respect the people around you. And that in a yearbook classroom could mean showing up, like being at school, doing what you're expected to do. If you're supposed to go to a game and take pictures, take those pictures, because if you don't take those pictures, somebody else is going to be without a job, whether it be your designer who doesn't have pictures, or your caption writer, or your copywriter who doesn't have anything to write about. So make sure that you respect your classmates. And then just a little bit more is respecting your advisor. If your advisor asks you to do something, you do it. If you're supposed to, revise your work, revise it and do your best job. I've talked about this in an earlier video about, don't as a yearbook student, don't expect the yearbook teacher to catch your errors. And I actually heard a student say that. They're like, oh, it's okay, Mrs. Griffith is gonna catch it. No, like, don't rely on me to catch it, because I cannot assure you that I'm gonna be able to catch this. So respect the teacher, and then respect the classroom. Keep it clean, keep it safe, make sure that you pick up after yourself. The camera equipment, my goodness, like, charge your batteries, make sure you download your pictures, make sure that when you sit down with a camera around your neck, you hold it so that you don't slam it against your desk. Like, that's respecting the classroom and respecting the equipment. And then respect your school. That's making sure that you're a good representative of your school when you're going out to games, when you're doing anything, that you're being respectful, and that people can look at you as a student of your high school and be proud of you for the way you're behaving. Are you being polite? Are you being caring and thoughtful and doing what you're supposed to be doing? And then respect your community. Again, it just keeps getting bolder and bolder. And so you're respecting your community, making sure that you're a good representative of your school, and then respecting the world and doing your part. So the cool thing about that, and about that being an umbrella, is that it's really easy to say, you know, oh my gosh, you left your papers all over the place. Are you being respectful? And they're like, oh, no, I'm not. Okay, no, you're right. Or you just put yourself down. Is that being respectful? No. Okay. So it's really easy, because anything bad that can happen, or anything bad that a student can do, really falls under the one rule of respect. So if you're not doing something that you're supposed to be doing, you're disrespecting somewhere along the line, even if it's just disrespecting themselves. All right, the next one is just creating a safe and loving environment. I always spoke to my students about this, and I made sure that everybody felt safe in the classroom. And that, I mean, obviously it goes hand in hand with respect, but if somebody has an idea, they need to feel safe enough to be able to tell us what's on their mind. Or if they were getting frustrated with something, they needed to make sure, I needed to make sure in my classroom that it was a safe environment where they can say what's on their mind without any fear of retaliation or anybody mocking them or making them feel bad. So that was another thing I used to always say to my classes, like, hey, this is a safe and loving environment. You're safe here. We care about you. We want you to be successful. And kids will thrive in an environment like that. There's a really cool book that's called The Square Will Take Care of Itself. It's amazing how if you take care of the child, everything else will take care of itself. You will get his or her best work because the child is happy and wants to do what's best. Taking the time to really get to know your students is really important too. I have an onion right there, and oh man, we've seen some tears. Just the same way when you start peeling an onion, you could see some tears. I would get my students down in a circle on the ground, and we would just gather together and talk about like their feelings, and talk about how, you know, like where these feelings came from. So I started off with one of my drama classes. I said, you know, all right, how do you feel in front of a crowd? And it all stemmed from the idea of people, you know, the saying that people would feel more comfortable being in the casket than doing the eulogy. And I was like, so how would you guys feel? Let's go around and let's talk. Would you rather be in the casket, or would you rather do the eulogy? And it was shocking how many kids said casket, and they were able to talk about why they felt that way. And it was so deep and so powerful to hear them say, well, it's, you know, it stems from when I was younger, I didn't feel comfortable because my older siblings would pick on me, or, you know, whatever it was. But for them to be able to like be honest with the group was really powerful for them. And yeah, it did make some of the kids cry. They were like releasing all of this that they had held inside. And it was really powerful because the other kids, again, we had this safe and loving environment. The other kids were there and they knew this piece. They knew that history for that student. And so they knew how to treat that student. So they were able to say, hey, when I'm frustrated, this is how I react. And this is what I need from you. And so it's really cool. But getting to know your kids and really getting to the core of that, it doesn't take a long time. I do it at the beginning of the year. And it's amazing how once kids really get where the other kids are coming from, there's so much more understanding, and that safe and loving environment will really thrive. The next one has a ball of string, and it's responsibilities, commitments, and the butterfly effect. This one, a good friend of mine had this idea, and she called it the wedding. It was just such a cute idea. But she would take this string and she would have the kids, and I did this with my students too, where I would take the kids in my group, I'd have them form a big circle and take the string, wrap it around their finger one time, just one loop, and then go to the next person, one loop, go to the next person. And I would wrap it around their fingers, and then, so they were all, it was fairly loose, but it was on there. And then I would call it out and I'd say, all right, go up, go down, left, right. And then sometimes I'd go right, left, down, up, or something like that. And needless to say, sometimes a kid would go left instead of going right, and it would tighten up the string. And so you'd hear, after a little bit, you'd hear kids going like, ow, oh, ah, or oh, you went the wrong way, or something like that. And the cool thing, I would stop them right there and say, all right, this is an illustration of what it's like in a yearbook classroom where you all have different responsibilities. And so if I was supposed to go to a football game and I was supposed to take pictures, if I didn't take pictures, how would that affect other people? Did it just affect you when you went the wrong direction? No, it affected the person next to you. So you say, all right, well, I went left instead of right. It tightened up the string on this guy's side and loosened up the string on this girl's side. And it shows just how, like the butterfly effect, how what you do doesn't just impact you, it impacts everybody else. And especially in a yearbook classroom, it will really impact, it'll impact everybody, because you don't have the content that you need if you're not doing your job, or if you're not showing up to school and you're not working on it right now with everything that's going on. If students aren't helping out, we're gonna have empty pages. We're gonna have, a lot of the weight of getting the yearbook done on that yearbook advisor, and everybody needs to pitch in. So that's the ball of yarn. As far as leadership goes, I always have a conversation to discuss the importance of meeting those deadlines. It's a lot like what I said with the ball of string. We talk about that. Why is it important to meet those deadlines? Why is it important to produce a quality product and represent the school and the community well? It's the only, like as a yearbook staffer, your homework is purchased by other people. And I think that's just like so cool, because you can do some really rad stuff in other classes, but in yearbook, people will buy your homework and they'll buy these beautiful designs that you've made and this beautiful writing. So it's really important to produce a quality product, one that people will be like more than happy to purchase. And so having that conversation at the beginning builds that intrinsic motivation, the motivation inside of the student to do their best work. And then setting reasonable goals together. You say, all right, well, can we meet these deadlines? Can we have this goal to do this one thing? And then you set those goals together. And as long as they have a say in it, then they tend to have more buy-in, which is also really nice, because they're then motivated also to meet those goals because they set it. And at the time you said, hey, we decided on these and they were reasonable. You said that they're reasonable. So let's work together to make these goals happen. And then I love this next one. Encourage focused learning. Increase opportunities for students to teach others once they have become a pro in their chosen area. So I used to have my students solidify their mastery of a topic. So say I have a photographer, I would have that photographer maybe learn something in manual mode that they can then turn around and teach the class. Or my writer, maybe my writer is going to teach the class about caption writing, or how to write a good lead, or something like that. So I would have each student learn something in depth and then turn around and teach the class. And so it could just be a mini lesson. It's a 5-minute lesson even from each of these students. But the cool thing is it solidifies mastery of the content. It promotes their leadership because they're getting in front of the class and they're teaching this really cool thing to their group, and it increases their confidence, especially if you have that safe and loving environment. It'll increase their confidence that, hey, I was able to teach something that I knew really well, and I was confident in that. I was able to teach that to these people, and they learned something because of me. And it's amazing what that can do to a student and help them build up that leadership. And then monitor student interactions frequently. This one, this one cracks me up because every time I think about this, I think about my student Emily. So monitor their interactions, monitor how are your editors talking to the designers, or how are they, how are the photographers talking to the copywriters? Monitor that frequently. Make sure that they are showing respect. Make sure that it's always a safe and loving environment. And they're going to get frustrated with each other, but are they doing it in a way that is respectful? Or are they doing it in a way that's demeaning and it hurts people's feelings? Like in this day and age, we have to be really careful. You don't have to put kid gloves on, but we need to be careful to be respectful to other people, because it's amazing how even the smallest thing, and you're like, I wasn't that mean. Well, it really does hurt people. Not always, but sometimes something you say could really, really hurt them because, you didn't say it in a way that was kind or respectful. And it's just not that hard to take a sentence and manipulate it to, have the same impact and have the same content, but be something nice. So I had a student, her name was Emily, and it was so funny because I call it Emily levels, because whenever she'd get frustrated, her hand would do this. And so it would start off down low and she'd be like, okay, getting really frustrated because, this stuff's not getting done. We're getting close to our deadline. And then the more upset she would get, the higher her hand would go. And she'd be like, all right, listen, like now we're not going to make our deadline because this happened and so-and-so is not showing up. And then by the time her hand was up here, she would be about ready to walk out the door. And she's like, I can't do it anymore. And I can't. And I was like, whoa. So I always knew that when she was about right here, I needed to pull her and say, hey, how can I help you? How can I make your life a little bit easier right now? Because as soon as it was here, she just she was out the door. And so yeah, monitor those Emily levels. Your students, the more you get to know them, the more you're going to know kind of where the breaking point is, and then back it off a little bit, because yearbook can be stressful, and people handle stress differently, obviously. So monitor those levels, help them de-escalate if they're getting stressed out. And then one of my probably my favorite idea as far as my suggestions or any sort of advice that I can ever give is Jack Canfield's formula for success, and it's E plus R equals O. And I remember distinctly the day I learned about this, and I just thought, before I always thought, bad stuff happens and it's so frustrating, and if this would have happened right, then this would have been good for me, but this happened and therefore I had this bad outcome. And I'm like, it's a mindset shift. So here it is. It's E plus R equals O. And E is the events. That's just the way the world is. Coronavirus. We have this awful thing that's going on right now. And it's really unfortunate. And people are dying and people are losing their jobs. And it's awful. It's just the way the world is right now. We cannot stop it right now. We're not, that's just not in our power to just freeze, but we can change our response to what's going on in order to get that O, which is your outcome. So E is the events, just the way the world is. R is your response to those events. And then O is the outcome that you want. So, JEA was canceled. So my response to those events is, I'm going to give you JEA. I'm just going to put it in a video, And then the outcome is, I'm still providing the content. You're still learning. It's, we can work around some of the things that are happening in this world. And there are so many people who have had some really awful events happen in their lives. And, and I think about, and when I taught this before at JEA, I think about Oprah, I think about, Dr. Phil, I think about these people who had really rough upbringings and really hard lives. And then they were able to turn that around because of their response. And then they got this really amazing outcome. So, that's my favorite equation. That's something that I teach my students, and years later, that's one of the things that they remember. That and short division. There are a couple of really cool things that I've taught. Apparently short division was one of them, and E plus R equals O. So there you go. The link to Jack Canfield's blog is on there. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I wish you the best of luck.